Squeezing it all in the next hour. Brendan Bradford joins us now so that we can, out of CodeSports Oz, 11-2. Two best teams meet in the final, Brendan?
Yeah, absolutely. Two best teams all year. You can't deny that. And I think, of the Broncos and the Warriors, Broncos have got a much better chance of beating the Panthers. But yeah, for Warriors fans, it's still going to hurt. But definitely the two best sides in the comp. Penrith it was a training run on Friday night. Really wasn't it against the Storm? Yeah, I felt like the Broncos made to work a little bit more, but it was very easy for Penrith.
Well, it's been easy in both finals matches. Penrith against the Warriors, Broncos did the same. Broncos against Melbourne, Penrith did the same.
Yeah, true. Yeah, absolutely. And look, the Melbourne Storm scored 22 points in 3 finals matches, including getting, held to 0 by the Broncos in week 1. Only 1 try against the Panthers. And just the Melbourne Storm performance on Friday, you're just sitting there going, how has this side made it this far into the competition? The Knights are playing better than them for sure. Obviously, the Roosters just fell short, and I think the Roosters were running on fumes by the time they played Melbourne. But just a really un-Melbourne Storm-like performance against the Panthers. The Panthers are good, but they barely fired a shot. They dropped four passes, 2 of them which were probably certain tries in the first half alone. I think the Storm were, it was pretty disappointing. Of all these 2 games of the 4 teams, Storm easily the most disappointing.
Warriors outclassed, and there's no disgrace in that at all, but I think it's a good pointer, is it not, to what the squad needs to go up another level. I thought a couple of things. I thought that too static, too flat-footed on attack, that Brisbane had so many players in motion moving, plus those offloads. I mean, that's, just the killer. You can't concede 25-plus offloads in a game.
Yeah, the offloads, the first half offloads it was just insane. Like, I've been saying all year the Broncos have been playing the most up-tempo, exciting rugby league, but that was one of the best halves I've ever seen from them, even though they conceded a few tries. Just the second phase play, and then on defence as well. Pat Carrigan just was seemingly everywhere. Jordan Ricky as well. And then they bring these guys off the bench and finally Pat Carrigan's going to get out of our faces for a little bit. And then they got 2 or 3 guys coming off the bench that are just charging up as well. So, look, they it was obviously a plan to throw those outrageous offloads. I think they'd thrown something like 14 in the first half hour when they were averaging 9 per game this year. So it was obviously a plan, and it was beautiful coaching, brilliant execution as well. And look, that's about all you can say, really. Like, I think the Broncos were the better side. It felt like the Warriors were coming back into it in the second half. I guess we'll get to the forward pass, but look, you can't really deny that the best side won on the night.
Look, we're talking a lot about the forward pass. I've got a lot of commentary to play, and I've got some more comments on that. So we'll part that because we all know about that. Look, I mean, it didn't cost the Warriors the game. I'll just say that. We know that it probably ended the game at that stage. And it's such a weird anomaly in the rules. We've got rugby, Brendan, which here I'm talking about it, okay. But we've got rugby, which is just so over-reffed, and the TMO interferes every 10 seconds and tells the ref, and that's one extreme of it. But how ridiculous is it when everyone can see a picture? You know how cricket used to be, that everybody could see the replay, but the umpire wasn't allowed to look at the screen to see he'd made a wrong decision, and just how insane that was, and eventually they changed it. The NRL, it's a blight on the game, but we've been saying this all year. They call it a line ball. It's goddamn forward, mate. We can all see it. And so just get the bunker to whisper in the ref's ear, go and have a look at it. That's all that needs to happen. Who wins the grand final then? And we'll probably talk to you later on in the week about this, but after watching Penrith and Brisbane both blow away their opposition in the prelim finals, it's a hell of an evenly matched contest, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. Just the last thing on that forward pass, it just felt like, okay, Warriors probably still would have lost, but at that point in the game, they'd stopped the offloads. It had become a grind. It felt like the Warriors were winning the kicking battle. And, like you say, the forward pass ended the game as a contest. The Warriors may have come back, maybe they wouldn't have. but they were getting the upper hand in the arm wrestle. They made it an arm wrestle after just an open first half, and they weren't allowed to try and capitalise on that. Anyway, I'm still look. I would back the Broncos. I'm just still uncertain whether that kind of football is enough to beat the Panthers. They've got so much experience in these big games. They know how to grind out wins. Nathan Cleary's first half on Friday might have been the best half of football I've ever seen him play. He was just tremendous on attack and defence, and he's just on another level. And I just think that Penrith will be able to make this an arm wrestle. We'll be able to stop those offloads. Their forwards will match what the Broncos forwards dish up like the Warriors couldn't quite do. And I just think the Panthers have a little bit more experience, and we'll get this done next weekend.
Devlin.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
The platform.
Zane the Warrirorholic Jones. You're a bit under the weather and a bit ill, mate. You're a bit sick. Is that a direct result of Saturday night, is it?
Oh, I think it was a direct result of I probably shouldn't have drunk on Saturday night to encourage
it. How are you feeling a couple of days later, mate? I hope you're in a happy mood.
Oh, mate, content. Like I said, mate, like we were just talking about now, I mean, I'd rather go like that than go out and play Golden Point, 1 point loss, and always wonder what could have been, you know?
Yeah, they're a better team. And I did say it, on Friday. And look, it's not I was making a massive prediction, but the great thing about sport, mate, is statistics. And statistics are there for a reason. Throughout the regular season, Penrith and Brisbane were the two best teams. Now, then you've got to raise the bar again when it comes to the finals. But, Zane, if you look back at the way that Penrith played us in the opening round and then they smashed Melbourne, and you look back at the way that Brisbane smashed Melbourne and then they played us on the weekend, those are the two best teams, mate.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, you sit back and try and figure out what it was, but, it's a fair call. And I think it comes down to the fitness and the speed and the power that the other teams have got to try and match, particularly in the forwards or, with the ball carrying. So it's great to, see that first year and we can get pretty close to that level. And it's be even more interesting to see what layers Webby adds over the off-season to bring us up to that level.
Totally agree. A couple of things that I wrote down afterwards. One, I just thought athletically they just look bigger, stronger and fitter than us. But a couple of things in the game. One of them was they always had players in motion on attack. They had guys moving, whereas I thought our attack was really flat-footed. And our two guys who were go-forward guys, Adam didn't have his greatest game. He didn't have a great game against Penrith, and his meters were a lot lower than what you'd expect. And also Tohu, but both of these guys weren't hitting the line at pace like Brisbane. And the other one was offloads, man. They just killed us with offloads.
Yeah, I think that wasn't an indication of the game on the weekend. It's something that's always been the case with the way Tohu and AFB run. That has worked against every other team, that they suck people in late footwork and so forth. But the Broncos, for some reason, were able to get that energy up. Maybe it's off the back of having that week off, that they're one of those teams who can come back well from a bye. But it was the offloads, and it's interesting if you watch how they lead in with their dominant arm into the tackle and turn into it so that the ball comes out in one motion and they've actually got that arm free. Whereas when we tried to do it, we're a little bit front on, and so you end up trying to wrap your arm around your chest, which is a really difficult thing to do. So it's clear they'd practiced that a lot, and it's something you can guarantee they'll use again this weekend.
Great observation. Because I was watching on a Saturday night around a mate's place, and both of them were saying, both the guys on the couch were saying, every time that they get into a tackle, they seem to be able to turn their bodies and release the ball. I don't know whether it's a wrestling technique. I don't know what it is, but they seem to do that in a split second as soon as they have contact. And so they'll obviously practice it a lot. But that is the difference between then getting an offload and getting another 5 or 10 metres quick up the field. So it's a technique thing, do you think, as much as anything else?
Well, 100%. I mean, we clearly practiced not to offload this year. We had the lowest offloads in the comp, and they had 28 on the weekend. So one is getting the offload away, and the second thing is about having the attack ready for it. So they obviously set their attack moves off the offload rather than off standard play, which we generally do. And it has worked. I mean, we opened them up when we had the chance, but if we just weren't able to contain those offloads, and it meant they could score at will and dominate the field position. So, once you start to lose that, particularly in the heat in Brisbane, it fatigues you quickly. Coming off the back of that big game last week, it was just a bridge too far, I think.
Zane at the Warrirorholic, he's been with us all season, every single Monday after every weekend's games. And, you know, I said it at the beginning, I'll say it, that these are the two best teams, that they're able to go up another level. It's going to be a cracker grand final. I'm hoping that Brisbane win. Couple of reasons. One of them is Luai, and because he's the love to hate figure, but he's more hate than love. And the other one is that I want us to lose to the team that wins it.
See, I'm the opposite, mate. I'm very keen for the Panthers to win because they're a success vision of where we can be in a couple of years' time, because they've done this all off the back of local player development, recruiting the odd sort of guy who's no one's even heard of and turning him into a superstar. And I think that's our model. We've done that with Jackson Ford. No one knew who he was until this year. So for me, I really want them to go 3 in a row. That I don't overly like Luai, but I like the fact they celebrate their wins. They've worked hard to get to where they are. And I'm the opposite, mate. I can't stand Walsh. I couldn't handle the look on his face if they pick up that trophy, mate, knowing that, you know, the way he walked out on us.
How could neither he or Chance be nominated for the Dally M Fullback of the Year? How's that?
He can't be because he's been suspended for more than 2 weeks, mate. That's the only reason.
Oh, okay, right. So that's well, I thought that Chance deserved a mention then in that case.
Well, again, it comes down to how many points you get per game, right? So this isn't a fair reflection. So, for example, for me, Wade Egan is the most consistent football hooker of the year, and a lot of the Aussie pundits have said so. But he's competing against AFB, Tohu, and SJ for points every time we get a win. Whereas you've got a guy like Harry Grant. If they win, it's either him, Jerome Hughes, or Munster. So he's not really sharing the points.
It's a strange system, isn't it? Yeah, I mean,
it's an odd system. Mate,
yeah, it doesn't. I mean, to me, it's meant to be the best player, but I'm not sure. Yeah, to me, it's a bit weighted. Like, you know, the Super Bowl MVP is always the quarterback. You know, very rarely you might get a defensive back or a kind of a pass rusher gets it, but very rarely it's always weighted towards that. So at the end of the season, you know, you can't help but look back and go, wow, this has been the coolest season, isn't it?
I mean, that's what I said in my review. Look, I didn't go right in and break down that game. It'd do my head in to try and watch that again to figure out what really happened right now. But back in the beginning of the year, when I heard Webby speak, I always swore we'd make the 8. At a pinch, I thought maybe we could make the 6, but I would never have dreamt of us making the 4 to get through to the preliminary final. To see the way it wasn't just luck, it wasn't something that's probably a one-off like we saw in 2018. It's been built on a culture by a guy who you heard him speak after the game. Everyone's trying to put it on the refs. He just takes out external factors, accepts what they should have done better, like not letting the line break happen in the first place, which led to the 2 forward passes. It's something that I feel for the first time in our club's history, we're building towards something rather than just doing a one-off. So that's what excites me, to see that the guys played with passion and heart every single minute of every game. We never dropped out of a game and dropped our heads. That's all I asked for, and they exceeded that tenfold, mate. I'm just so stoked. And to be a part of that, the movement, those fans coming to the crowd and building their voice every week to the pinnacle of that game against the Knights, I just hope we can repeat that next year.